Good afternoon, everybody. This is Ian from Rockland Rebel Radio. The recording you're about to hear takes place on a warm Wednesday afternoon in JP, where Zoe DePaz and I discuss for 40 minutes about her role in Troll 2, her history as a singer-songwriter, and anything and everything in between. Just as a fair warning, I've mixed myself poorly, and I'm about half as loud as Zoe is. I've tried to compensate wherever possible, but some things I either missed or could not fix. Just as another side note, there is a saxophonist practicing just upstairs from where we're recording, and that appears in certain parts of the recording. There's also a siren that is going off in the neighborhood as an ambulance rolls through, and I could not edit that out either. However, I think this recording is extremely insightful and very interesting, and I think you will definitely get something out of it, whether it be something you were curious about and wanted to ask Zoe, or something about the influences of Troll 2 itself. Also, going through this video, there will be a list of tour dates and the locations that Troll 2 will be playing throughout the month of August, and it would be amazing if you could come out to any of those. So, without further ado, let's get into the recording. Probably one of the most inspiring tales of just a band that formed naturally.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, I think it's really special. So.
It definitely is. One thing that I was curious about is you've had some recent gigs playing solo work.
Mm-hmm.
How long has it been between the Edinburgh days where you were starting to do solo stuff and now where you're kind of doing a resurgence of solo work?
Yeah, that's also new. That's new since this April. I've started to really work on my own solo stuff and hire out or put together a band for my own music outside of Troll 2. 2014 and 15, that winter, that autumn and winter, I was on the road with another musician, and we did duo stuff, and we had been together in a musical partnership, and I took a hiatus from Troll 2, and that really we can edit this out. That really kind of a lot of those songs that I wrote during that time, it was such an intense, we just lived on the road for about 6-8 months. And that I still have a lot of songs from that period. And then I've written a lot of songs in that time period since then. So I would say it's been very spotty, and I've only started to make it kind of focus on it in the last 3 months. So it's been spotty. It was a little bit in Edinburgh, a little bit when I got back, a little bit on the road, and then sporadically here in Boston.
In your solo work, do you still play fiddle, or do you go for the typical acoustic guitar driven songs?
Yeah.
Not to trash on acoustic guitar. That seems the kind of the default.
Yeah.
John, the pianist of Bullpup, when he started doing solo stuff, he would go between the acoustic and the piano.
Yeah.
So it just seems it's kind of the natural progression of solo artists.
Yeah, I think I fluctuate between fiddle and I play a resonator guitar, a steel resonator guitar. Ooh. So I fluctuate between those two things. And I'm very new to guitar. I've only been playing it for 3 years. So I still consider fiddle my main instrument, and I sing it. I think why I like the guitar is because of the chord options. You fiddle isn't really a chord instrument, so it's nice to get a fuller sound. And also, if I need to lead a band through chord progressions, I'm going to use the guitar because it makes more sense.
Any specific goal that you have as a singer-songwriter when you jumped into the circuit?
Oh my gosh, no, I don't think so. I think it was not. I think it was more salvation motivated. I think it was pretty, when I first jumped in this circuit, before I met the folks in Troll 2. It's pretty selfish oriented. I mean, I'm very open about the fact that I struggle with mental illness and depression and chronic depression. And I think for me, writing music and performing music was just like self-preservation and self-salvation, and kind of just like, oh my God, if I don't do this, then I will literally go crazy and like bad things will happen. This is like the one thing holding me together. So I definitely started doing open mics and going to bars and like jumping on bills and that kind of thing, definitely as like I literally cannot do anything else, is the only thing that's working. And so from that point of view, it was healing, but it was and cathartic, but it was also very like self-oriented and myopic and very like please don't hate me, I'm just a little worm. And so yes, and I think with the love and the acceptance and the welcoming, the amazing welcoming spirit of the DIY community, transformation happens and growth is possible. And I'm definitely not in the same place right now. Now I'm very much in a place of like, how can I open my house up for other people? Like, how can I be a participating member that gives back to this amazing community that's given so much to me? So I think my goals when I first started the circuit was like, I don't want anyone to hate me, and I don't want to die. Which is kind of dark, but
I mean, we all have our reasons.
But yeah. But
it seems like you have a lot more of a goal now than like you did when you started. Like, you definitely speak on a lot more social issues.
Yes.
You seem to make it important to spread the idea of women empowerment and taking back their lives. Mm-hmm. Very admirable. Like,
thank you.
You write some amazing songs about it too.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, I definitely see the platform of music as a gift. I mean, you're literally on stage, usually a raised stage, literally above other people, and people are literally staring at you, expecting you to say something. So I feel like the message should be one that makes the world a better place. And if I can use that literal platform to be talking about like human rights or about women's rights or about social justice, like that's definitely integral to Troll 2 and Troll 2's philosophy. I don't think we have many like sappy love songs. I think we try to keep the sappy love songs to a minimum. I have one or two, but yeah.
So one thing that also crossed my mind that just came back up.
What
clarifies the different? Well, what's the difference between what would be a Zoe DePaz song and a Troll 2 song?
You like the saxophone in the background? I hope that's on this. I hope this gets recorded. What constitutes? I think most of my upbeat songs, like fast tempo, like as far as BPM goes, those generally make better Troll 2 songs. I think Troll 2 kind of has a reputation for being a band you can dance to. And you can like get down with the revolution. Like you literally can just like party to the revolution. I think that's great. Like I really hope that saxophone comes in. That's Netta Renan, the beautiful sounds of Netta Renan, my roommate, who plays amazing jazz saxophone. She plays amazing free jazz. Anyways, so I think that's something that I really like to keep a hold of for Troll 2. I think my more overtly political stuff is also more Troll 2. A lot of the stuff I've been doing solo has been the more like slow or more funky or the more Motown kind of sounding, because I have a lot of soul and blues influences, and I think like a lot of I have like a bunch of like breakup songs and love songs, and those are things that I definitely perform more solo. It's a slightly different one's more like folk punk or grunge, like very hard hitting kind of like grungy like punk aesthetic and politics in a folk form, and then my solo stuff is more like blues Americana, I would say. Yeah, whatever.
But so specifically, what is your role in Troll 2 outside of just the writer, one of the writers, and the fiddle player?
Yeah, that's a great question. So so we've always been a very democratic band. It's actually definitely the most democratic or egalitarian band I've ever played in. And I feel like when I say that to a lot of people, they're always like, really? You split things? Like I've never met a band who does that. So I know it's kind of unique, but back when we had Mark in the band, we would split everything kind of 4 ways and we had designated roles. And Mark left the band in April. So we've been in the process of kind of like reassigning roles and reassigning like who does what. Mm-hmm. But usually those roles are like, for example, Chris is in charge of transportation. So we have been using his van. We are in the process of either souping up the van or buying a new van. He's in charge of like maps and road math, which is legit. It's like calculating gas mileage and like, thank goodness I don't have to do that. He does that. And then Brian does like video editing and like website, domain stuff. He writes the code. He does a lot of like the online stuff. And also as far as artwork goes, he's had a hand in all of our music videos. If he wasn't the director, then he was either like the editor or the producer or something like that. So that's really cool to have a filmmaker in the band who like, just like, oh, this is what I do. So that's really awesome. And then I do a lot of the booking and like the daily grind. So like organizing schedules and doing social media. And me and Brian. So right now I'm like very busy because it's like tour. Yeah. But then once we're on tour, it's like, great, I did all of my work and now Chris is working really hard and I don't have to do anything. So we kind of share the labor. And then me and Brian also do the designing for all the artwork and like doing t-shirts and doing merchandise and all of that. So I print it and we make all the buttons. We have a button making party. We have a button maker. Yeah. So yeah, we all share the labor and we are always constantly figuring out, oh, if someone has a really busy week, then we just delegate it to somebody else. It's good communication.
That's a really awesome way to run a band. Like I know many bands where some people will take all of the responsibility on their own shoulders.
No, it's too much.
And some bands where everyone puts the responsibility on that person. And it seems like a rough experience, whereas you've been running since like 2011, almost like this.
Yeah, I think it's more sustainable. I think we've been friends since 2011. We've been formally a band since 2014. So it's been about 5 years that we've been like an official band. But I think it does help that we were all friends beforehand. And I think it's helpful to like, I for one really respected Brian as an artist and as a filmmaker and as an organizer before I even joined the band. And I really respected Chris as a local singer-songwriter, and I really respect his lyricism. And I think it helped that I saw them for who they were before we joined forces, and we kind of all have our own autonomy in the band, and we all bring different things to the table. So, yeah, like I can't do certain things like the way that they can. Do you know what I mean? Like I think it's helpful to be like, I have a limit of like my ability to run this, and I think if I had to, the idea of having to do it all by myself is so exhausting. I wouldn't be able to do the whole thing by myself.
Yeah, I totally understand. Like that. I mean, I crack under pressure sometimes just trying to find like my own scheduled work for all the stuff I do.
I know. I don't know how people do it. I think do you know that there's a band from the West Coast called Typhoon? And I think they're like 17 piece or something. They're really big. You can look them up online. And it's this one guy who's the creative director. He does everything. And like, props to people who can work in that paradigm. I legitimately do not know how people run a business like that. Because I would just be so tired all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand. How did you end up meeting Brian and Chris anyway?
through the DIY scene in Boston, through like the basement underground scene in Boston in the mid 2000s, there was really amazing punk scene, and I think it's morphed. There's still an amazing like DIY and punk scene. It's different. It's a different generation. So when I was like a early 20-year-old, and we were like a bunch of us were in college. Not Chris didn't go to the same college as us, and he was just like part of the scene. But like that age range, so whatever that is, it's like 20 to 25, right? That scene was much more hardcore. It was pretty hardcore based. It was very party based. So there was a lot of like drugs and alcohol and just like wild, crazy shit happening all the time. And now I think it's shifted very much towards like the more sustainable, like sober. There's a lot of all ages spaces. There's a lot of sober spaces. It's shifted more into like a listening room community, which is really awesome. And it's also just like really different. So when we got together, there was a bunch of party houses in Brighton on like Linden Street. There's a bunch in JP. There was like 7 in JP. Now there's like 1. So I think it's less decentralized now. Back like 10 years ago, it was hyper centralized to like JP, Mission Hill, and Brighton, Alston Brighton. And now a lot of people can't afford the rents in Boston. A lot of people have graduated or left, or a lot of people have moved on in their artistic careers. So you're starting to get places like the Puzzle Factory in Rockland, or you're getting people moving to Salem and creating like artist colonies there, or people moving outside of the city limits, and everything's much more decentralized, which is really cool. Like the barn, and spaces like that, which, so the scene's definitely changed, but that's how we met. Sorry, I'm rambling.
No worries. Like,
you can edit this shit.
It's always interesting to hear, because there's always like little nuggets of information.
Yeah.
And like some of the rambling, like stuff that you probably never would have heard before, that also starts to catch my eye. Because I mean, like I sometimes hear the oral history of like the scene before this scene.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's usually like a complete blur. I mean, I could probably sit down with Brian Fitzgerald and he could just like go on for 2 hours about how it used to be.
Yeah.
Different bands.
But it's also really interesting because we all have our own perspective. Like, for example, because Troll 2 happened so organically, we all have different timeline perspectives, and we all have like I was the last one to join the band. So like if you ask Brian when Troll 2 was founded, he'll be like, yeah, 2011. And if you ask me, I'll be like 2014, because it was like such a slow progression, and both are right. Neither are wrong. It just was like, it was just like such an organic thing. I was like, oh, these dudes are like playing music in a basement, and like they asked me to play with them, and I'll like it was very casual. I guess that's what I'm saying. But yeah, that was the Monkey Palace, and that was in Jamaica Plain, and it just closed its doors this month, and it's being relocated to a new space.
I'm glad that there at least is some spirit of the Monkey Palace being carried forward.
Yeah.
In my eyes, it's been legendary, because I've only just seen it last month when I was working with Mark, recording Susan Freeman's singles.
Yeah. Which I'm on. I'm really excited that we're both part of the same project.
Yeah,
so I know.
It was like, kind of cool just hearing that. Oh yeah, tomorrow or like the next couple of days, Zoe is like coming to do Fiddle on that.
I know.
Oh,
Suze is amazing. Yeah, shout out to Susan Freeman.
Yeah, shout out. Like literally, hearing those singles made me a fan, and I actually can't wait to hear how they come out production-wise. Yeah, I'm really stoked, and I think that's officially the last album to be recorded at the Monkey Palace Studios. I think it's the end of an era, but yeah, which is sad, but it's also like happy in a bittersweet kind of way, because it creates new space, or more open space to create new things. And I think we've all definitely changed in the last 10 years. Like the person who I was in 2009 is a very different person than I am now. So growth is always great.
Yeah.
You know, I look back on myself in like high school and then now it's like, wow, I was such a shitbag. Just growing up now it's amazing thinking about it, because like you see all the influences around you and you wonder like, these are all the people that actually made me a better person. And hell yes to all of that.
Yeah.
One thing that I got curious about is your view on the timeline of Troll 2. What do you think happened between 2011 and 2014 that made you say this is a real band? Was it?
That's a good question. I think it was just at first it was a joke. Like literally it was like, haha, this is funny. Like Brian would sign up his name for the open mic. So the Monkey Palace open mic, and there were several other open mics that were happening at that time, and he would just show up as Brian Fitzgerald, and then he would write down the most ridiculous name on the sign up list. And he went through this would happen for like years. This would happen like every Wednesday or every month they would have a different open mic. So that was just kind of his gimmick. And then one time he wrote down Troll 2. So the last time he did this gimmick, the very last time he did the gimmick was Troll 2, the name, and then he had Chris come up with him, and they started performing as a duet. And at the time there was a drummer in the band, or percussionist. He did like a bass drum and a washboard, so he played washboard. And so the three of them started performing together as under the joke name of Troll 2, and they wouldn't do any promotion. They would just show up. It was like a happening. They'd be like, oh, like Brian Fitzgerald is performing under this ridiculous names, and they would wear like ridiculous hats, and they would like play ridiculous covers, and it was just like a joke. And then, and in a great way. And then Mark joined the band, and Mark was a full-time musician and like very focused and like invested in. He was a full-time musician, like that was his livelihood. So I think it became more organized with him joining the band. And then they were like, hey, we should get another solo instrument. So they asked me to join. I was in 2013 to 14. So I knew all of this happening. And in 2013 to 14, I was living in Edinburgh in Scotland. I did a study abroad there. And that was the first time I had really I had truly started to perform my own original material in public in front of other people through the Edinburgh and the Glaswegian amazing open mic and singer-songwriter circles and community that lives there. They supported me because I had always played fiddle, and I'd always backed up other people, but I had never had the gall to perform my own material, my own original material, and not like traditional fiddle tunes. So while I was in Edinburgh, I started doing that, and then I came back to Boston, and they were like, oh, dope, like you write music too. And I was like, yeah, I write music. And they were like, great. So that's the timeline from my point of view. Does that answer some questions? In 2014, I graduated, and we cut the first Nobody Cares in 2014.
Yeah, that just kind of answers it. Yeah. So it's just kind of the growth from joke band into let's get serious about this. We actually have something to work with.
Yeah, and we give a shit about this. This is like special. This is really special.
I'm like,
yeah.
And what artists would you say inspire a lot of your solo written stuff?
Oh my goodness. I think some of the bands and artists that have had the biggest influences on me, songwriting wise, there's an amazing blues musician called Coco Taylor, and Coco Taylor's music hands down saved my life. She's amazing. I think Mavis Staples is a big influence on me. I think Mischief Brew and Ramshackle Glory were later influences. There's a Scottish band. One of the reasons why I started playing music in general was this guy, Scott Hutchinson from Frightened Rabbit. Frightened Rabbit was super inspiring for me to start opening up about mental illness or depression or about anxiety. Those are things that band did a lot with. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for current people right now, like Lizzo, And yeah, just there's, I don't know, very varied. But her flute playing is amazing.
That's like something that you don't expect in the realm of trap, and then it happens.
I mean, she's an amazing flautist. Yeah, and I think super inspirational for a lot of human beings. Yeah, I think when I was younger, when I was really young, I was really into a band called the Ducks and the Mammals. I was really into like Ani DeFranco. I was really into Dar Williams. I was really into Tracy Chapman. I'm really, really into Tracy. And a bunch of fiddlers that I could name. I was really into Natalie McMaster and Alistair Fraser and Alison Krauss and the Steel Drivers for like bluegrass and stuff like that. I have a very wide and varied circle of influence.
Which is awesome as hell. I mean, like, now it makes me want to try and figure out like Brian and Chris's circles of influences to see what is on in their weird minds that like helps them create the sound that they create.
Yeah, totally. I think I can give you a hint about Brian's. I think Brian's, the top four would be Zealand Ardor, Guar, Steel Eye Span, and like either Fairport Convention or like Maddie Pryor or someone a British psychedelic folk of the 1970s. And I feel like Chris is more of like a Ramshackle Glory, Pat the Bunny. He's heavily influenced by like Days and Days and I think like Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger. He's like, I mean, he's amazing. So he has a very, I don't want to speak for them, but those are the bands that those two guys got me really into. So I did not know about Zealand Ardor before I met Brian Fitzgerald.
Neither did I. There's like one Puzzle Factory show, and he just got control of the tower speaker, and then I just heard this metal over there. I was like, no one in this scene listens to metal other than me. Who is this?
Oh yeah.
Wait, Brian?
Brian's
listen to metal.
Brian really listens to metal in a really beautiful way. He's gotten me into. I don't like all metal, but I have gotten into like doom. Yeah, I've gotten into like doom and a little bit of black, but not like, yeah. And I like thrash drums. I've like realized like what specifically I like from all metal, but yeah, he's gotten me into metal.
Like doom and black metal have actually had like a nice like popular resurgence in the last like I don't know 5 to 8 years with how they've kind of been recontextualized and reappropriated into newer forms of media. Because you know about the whole history of black metal being like racist and
unfortunately, yes, I do.
And how a lot of the stuff, unfortunately, you can't really look back and appreciate with a good conscience. And it's just kind of neat seeing how a lot of it's being reappropriated into newer ways, newer sounds. Yeah,
and revisionists. Yeah, totally.
Like we've got Death Heaven who've like tried to mix black metal with like the shoegaze sound. All these other like smaller artists or bigger artists like trying to recontextualize, and it's cool to see different sounds evolve culturally so that we can start to appreciate like what we could.
Yeah, I get that. I feel like the hardcore scene has a very similar, or like hardcore skinhead punk scene has had a similar narrative of like white supremacists or white nationalists or fascists infiltrating a scene that actually originally in the 1960s and 70s in London was actually one of the few interracial scenes, and it was started like through the ska and through the reggae scene, and it was originally black and white working class people together, and then got just totally appropriated and destroyed by racists. And now finally our generation is kind of like rectifying that history and being like, no, actually, like you can be like a leftist and hardcore. You can be like, there's like a whole like Antifa skinhead movement, which is like really cool that they're taking back the sound in like the fourth generation, or depending on who you talk to, it's the third or the fourth or the fifth generation of this music, and saying, no, this is inclusive. This is an inclusive space. This is feminist space. We stand for like trans rights. We are leftist, which is really, yeah, I think our generation's making shit happen in a really cool way. So yeah, props to that.
And I was even supposed to talk about, but so I guess just hardball back into like the tour.
Yes.
What has been like how has it been like trying to book like this tour where I think Troll 2 mostly has done like maybe a couple week runs, but this has been like almost a full month of touring for you guys?
Yeah, honestly, this tour is dope because we're touring with Out of System Transfer, who's a Brooklyn-based band, and they're homies, they're friends, and I'm so excited to do that. Last summer, we toured a little bit shorter. You're absolutely right. And because Mark was getting married that summer. Ooh. But the summer before, we did about a 8-week tour to the West Coast and back. And I think a lot of the contacts, it opened a lot of doors. That was definitely the hardest tour we've ever done because we were playing new to town a lot of places. Mm-hmm. But the communities we met and just like the contacts we gleaned and were able to stay in touch with opened a lot of doors for the next year and then this year. So we have done one other tour. It was slightly longer, but this one was like just so much easier because we were touring with Out of System Transfer. So we were able to share the load. And then coming back from Chicago, we're touring by ourselves. Mm.
And I heard you guys are one of the headliners for Fourth River Fest in August too.
Oh, I don't know if we're the headliners, but yeah, we're definitely playing. And we're really excited. We're playing, I believe that's the 17th of August. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was talking about it with Justin last night. He was showing me how, well, he was also on you guys' day as well. Okay. And that you guys were pretty much at one of the very top spots. So
oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure you guys are headliners.
Oh, wow. Well, that makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. Yeah, we know them. At this point, I feel like they're old friends, but yeah, there's a lot of amazing bands that come out of the Fourth River Collective. I feel like they're constantly changing, but the Hills and the Rivers was the first band we got to know. And then last year, the short tour we did was with another band from Fourth River Collective. They're an amazing band called Cousin Boneless. And yeah, so between the Hills and the River and Cousin Boneless and a lot of amazing, it's a huge collective. So there's like, I don't know, somewhere in between like 45 and 100 people in the collective. It's like a big group. So there's a lot. Go check them out. There's a lot. They have comps every year of all the artists that are signed to or part of the collective and part of the cooperative. So they're doing amazing things for the DIY scene in Pittsburgh, and I have nothing but good things to say about them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like it's a much more expansive version of what Together Records is trying to do.
Yeah,
time frame.
Yeah, totally. It's definitely the same vein of thought, definitely the same paradigm. They were just fortunate enough to have, they kind of like took over architecturally like a space that had been in the neighborhood kind of just available. I don't know if it was necessarily derelict or like if it had been abandoned, but they occupy several houses in this one like block stretch. So it feels very much like a artist colony. Like you can pop over to one kitchen and you can go over to like another garden, and like someone else has like something cool in their art studio at another house, so you can, It's like this one whole street, which is kind of cool.
That sounds cool.
I know. Living the dream.
I thought they have to like try and like make a stop down at the Fourth River Collective, because that just sounds like a lot of fun to just like mess around in.
Yeah, definitely hit them up. They have amazing shows. Their living room venue is called Owl Hollow, and you can check them out online.
Yeah. Look for Owl Hollow on the Facebooks and wherever, I guess.
On the Book of Faces. And the gram of Instas.
So, what can you tell me about upcoming material from Troll 2?
I'm so glad you asked. So we're doing this big tour for the rest of the summer, and then we're coming back the first week of September, and our plan is to record in September. I don't think we've made a formal announcement about it yet, so I'm hesitant to say very specific details. But I think in the next 2 or 3 weeks, you should be waiting, anticipating for a big announcement. I will say that there will be video attached. Can I give teasers? I can't like blow the whole mother load, but there will be video involved.
All right.
There will be singles involved. And there will be special VIP packages involved if you want to like become more involved in the process. You can like sign up in different tiers. It's like community participation. If you want to be a special friend to Troll 2, you can.
This is my wallet.
Okay. Oh no. Okay, you literally just threw me your wallet. Okay, ready? There you go. There you go.
Even when we have a little bit in our
took his wallet. So that's what I feel comfortable, and that will be happening in September and definitely completed, knock on wood, by way before Christmas. So that will be our autumnal project.
Well, you know what? I wish you the best of luck on the autumnal project, and I just genuinely am excited, especially with like all the little surprises here and there, the little whisperings.
Yes,
Is there any, I think that just about does it. You probably have to be somewhere in like 12 minutes. Or at least have to leave for somewhere in 12 minutes.
Yeah, gotta go soon.
So, is there anything else you'd like to tell to the people of the world while you have the platform? I
mean, check out Troll 2 and our tour dates. Find us on Instagram and Facebook. Find us on YouTube. We're going to be having some shit drop on YouTube the end of this year. And I am findable on Instagram, Zoe DePaz. You can find me on my SoundCloud, and hopefully I'll be recording an album this year.
Kick-ass.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you know who you're going to be recording with?
I don't in the space, but however, we have an amazing audio engineer friend who has worked with a whole slurry of people, and his name is Ryan Renteria. And Ryan Renteria is just an amazing audio engineer. So we've been working with him in the past, and I don't want to say anything official yet because nothing's set in stone. But he's you should go check him out. He's done a lot of work, and he's cool.
Well, yeah, check out all of the links below. Check out Zoe wherever you can find Zoe.
Yeah,
check out Troll 2 wherever you can find Troll 2. Keep your eyes out for big things coming soon with Troll 2.
Coming to a city near you or a barn near you.
Yeah. And thank you, Zoe, so much for welcoming me into your apartment and sitting down with me for this.
Welcome to my home. There's a fluffy cat.
It's a neat couch. Yeah, so that just about does it. Thank you all for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.
Thanks,
Peace.
Ian.
Thank you.